Delivery driver.
Could you explain to the jury what it means to be a delivery driver at Advanced Auto Parts?
I bring parts from our store to other garages and businesses.
Now, Ms. Ickes, when you make these deliveries, you use a company car?
Yes, ma'am.
And are there more than one company cars that you have access to, or is there a particular car that you drive?
Multiple cars.
Okay. Now, Ms. Ickes, I'd like to turn your attention to November 23rd of 2012. Were you working back then as a delivery driver at Advanced Auto Parts?
Yes, I was.
Now, what hours back then were you working on that particular date?
1 o'clock to 9 o'clock p.m.
Now, at some point during your shifts that day, did you leave Advanced Auto Parts and go out on a coffee run?
Yes, I did.
Ms. Ickes, could you tell the jury where you went to go get your coffee?
The Gate gas station on Southside and Bay Meadows Road.
Now, is that a Gate gas station that you were familiar with?
Yes, ma'am.
How often do you go to this gas station?
About 4 times a week.
Now, when you left here to the gas station, what vehicle were you driving?
The white company truck.
And did anyone go with you on that coffee run?
No, ma'am.
Now, if you look at your screen, I'm showing you States Exhibit 3. And looking at States Exhibit 3, can you explain to the jury, generally speaking, where Advanced Auto Parts is?
If you went down Bay Meadows Road going west, it would be on your left-hand side about a mile down.
And can you just put a line on Bay Meadows Road just so the jury has an orientation to that? And is Advanced Auto Parts and actually it's off the screen?
Yes.
Okay, and then can you also draw a line through Southside Boulevard? Okay. Now, when you left Advanced Auto Parts, which direction of travel did you take to get to that Gate gas station?
I went east on Bay Meadows.
And was your intention then to turn left on the south side?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when you got to that intersection that we see on States Exhibit 3, did you get stopped by a red light?
Yes, I did.
And could you tell this jury what lane you were in when you were stopped at that red light?
I was in the left turning lane. There's 2 turning lanes. I was in the right-hand lane.
Okay. And when you were stopped at that intersection, were your windows up or down?
My window was cracked.
Is that just the driver's side window?
Yes, ma'am.
And was the passenger side window down?
No.
About how far down was your driver's side window?
An inch or 2.
Okay, and did you have any music playing or anything like that?
No, ma'am.
Now, Ms. Ickes, were you on the phone at that point in time?
Yes, I was.
And who were you on the phone with?
My friend Jennifer. My friend Jen.
And Ms. Ickes, if you could just make sure you speak up into the microphone. As you were stopped waiting at that intersection for the light, did you hear anything unusual?
I heard gunshots.
And from where you were, could you tell where those gunshots were coming from?
No, ma'am.
Could you tell the jury how many gunshots you heard?
I just heard a sequence of gunshots.
But it was more than one?
Yes.
Now, from where you were, could you see any gunshots?
No.
Could you see any muzzle flashes?
No.
Could you see any firearms?
No.
After hearing the gunshots, approximately how much longer did you have to wait at that red light?
I'd say 30 to 45 seconds.
And is that just an approximation?
Yeah. I really wasn't paying attention. I was talking on the phone.
Okay, you were still on the phone?
Yeah.
When the light turned green, where did you go?
I took a left on the south side and an immediate right into the gas station.
And I'm showing you States Exhibit 2. For the record, can you show the jury which entrance you turned into the gate station?
Yeah. Right through there.
Okay. Now, where did you park the truck you were driving when you pulled into the gate station?
I parked the truck in the right in front of the ice machine, right up front.
And once you parked your truck, did you immediately get out?
No, ma'am.
What were you still doing in the car?
I was still talking to Jen.
Now, while you were sitting in the car speaking with your friend, did anything catch your attention?
Yeah, a red SUV had pulled up next to me.
And did it pull up directly next to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Ickes, I'm now showing you States Exhibit 43. Do you recognize this photograph?
I do.
And what is that a photograph of?
That's the vehicle that pulled up next to me.
Okay, and when you look to your left, what did you notice about the car when it pulled in?
The bullet holes.
What were you thinking when you saw this vehicle?
I was in shock. I really didn't know what was going on.
And Ms. Ickes, I'm now showing you States Exhibit 4. Is that up on the screen in front of you?
Yes.
And can you circle for the jury where your white truck is? Which I know seems obvious. And then is that the red SUV parked directly next
Yes.
to your car? Oops. And State's Exhibit 8. Is that just a closer photograph of that?
Yes.
Now, Ms. Ickes, what did you first do after you noticed that red SUV next to you?
I was still on the phone with Jen, and somebody had gotten out of the car, and I asked if everybody was okay.
Okay, and soon after that, did you get off the phone with your friends?
Yes.
Okay. Now, at that point in time, did you then get out of your truck?
I did.
Okay, and where did you go when you got out of your truck?
I walked up to the front of the red SUV and stood in front of the ice machine.
And did you eventually call 911?
Yes.
Now, Ms. Ickes, I know you mentioned you saw someone get out of the red SUV. Can you explain to the jury what their demeanor was like when you saw that person get out?
I would say that he was in shock. He distraught almost.
Okay. Now, I know you mentioned you called 911. After you were on the phone with 911, did members of Jacksonville Sheriff's Office and eventually Jack's Fire and Rescue show up on the scene?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you eventually speak with police officers that night?
I spoke to a detective in the gas station later that night.
Okay, and was that after you were asked to wait inside of the gas station?
Yes, ma'am.
Have a moment, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Abel?
Good afternoon, Ms. Ickes.
Hello.
Now, when you were sitting at the intersection at the stoplight, and you heard the gunshots, the light was still red at that point, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so even after the gunshots, you had to sit there a little bit longer before
Right.
the light turned green.
Mhm.
A couple minutes.
I'd say 30 to 45 seconds.
Okay.
It wasn't very long.
And then once the light turned green, then you would make a left turn.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then you would travel a bit down South Side.
I would say 20 feet.
Okay, and then you would make a right.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. And then you'd make another right into the gate gas station.
Yeah.
And then you'd make a left to park.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to show you, Ms. Ickes, what's been marked as defendants 13. Can you show the jury where initially you were
When I
at the
parked
stoplight?
at the stoplight, I was right there.
I'm sorry, could you make a bigger mark? I have a hard time seeing. Okay, thank you. And then could you show the jury, now that's the stoplight that you were sitting at, the red light.
Yes.
Once it turns green, show the jury what path you took. And that's Southside Boulevard?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then as you've done, you make a right into the plaza,
Yes.
and then where do you go at that point?
I then followed the road, took a right into the gas station, and parked.
And a left to park.
Yes.
Okay. Now, once you get to the gas station, the red SUV is not there at that point.
Correct.
Okay. And in fact, when the red SUV does pull in, it doesn't pull in at a high rate of speed.
I was not paying attention. Like I said, I was on the phone.
Well, did you hear any screeching tires or anything like that?
No, ma'am.
Okay. In fact, there was nothing out of the ordinary initially upon its entrance back into the gate gas station that drew your attention.
Not that I noticed. No.
Okay. And it wasn't until you looked over and you saw the bullet holes that got your attention.
Correct.
Now, when you were in your vehicle, once you were parked, you still continued to talk to your friend Jen, did you say?
Yes, ma'am.
For approximately 30 more seconds.
That's approximate. I don't remember exactly how
Could be a
long.
little more, could be a little less.
Yes.
Okay. But you didn't immediately get out of your car.
No, ma'am.
You stayed in there and finished your conversation.
Yes.
Okay. And it's at that point, after you hung up, after you finished your conversation, then you get out of your car.
Well, I only got out of my car after they had already pulled up.
Sure. But I mean, after you finish your conversation, you hang up the phone and you get out of the car. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. And it's at that point that someone asked you to call 911.
Yes.
No one came and knocked on your window, begging you to call 911? No one was waving their arms trying to get your attention?
No.
Okay. And during this time, are you familiar with the plaza adjacent to the gate?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. People are still coming and going in and out of the gate station in that whole entire area.
I was not paying attention to that.
Miss Ickes, as you were sitting there, did you ever see any of the boys in that car attempt to call 911?
Not that I saw. No.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Miss Ickes.
May she be excused, Ms. Abel, as far as you're concerned?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Wilson?
Just a few more questions.
Sure.
Ms. Ickes, were you paying attention to all of the boys who had been in the SUV at all times?
No, ma'am.
And when you called 911, was that because one of the boys from the car had asked you to call 911?
Objection, Your Honor. Your say.
Overruled. Go ahead.
I didn't notice who had asked me to call 911. I just heard call 911.
Okay, and was that from somewhere within the vicinity of the red SUV?
I don't know.
Okay, I have no further questions, Your Honor.
May she be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. You're excused. All right, ma'am. If you'll come right around this way for me. And you can adjust that microphone as you need, just to get close to you, and be sure and speak loudly and directly into the microphone. Ms. Wilson.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Could you please state your name and spell it for the record?
Yes, Mariah Grimes, MariahGrimes.
Ms. Grimes, where are you currently employed?
Gate Petroleum,
And how long have you been employed by Gate Petroleum?
for 2 years.
Now, would that be since September of 2012?
Yes,
Okay. Ms. Grimes, do you work at a particular Gate gas station here in Jacksonville?
yes, the Southside and Bay Meadows location.
Now, have you worked at that particular location ever since you started working for Gate Petroleum?
Yes, I have.
Ms. Grimes, what is your current position at the Gate gas station?
I'm a CSR, which is a cashier and customer service representative.
And could you explain to the jury briefly what it is that your duties entail as a customer service representative?
We ring up customers and clean the store and make sure everything's running smooth.
And has that been your position ever since you've been employed by Gate Petroleum?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I'd like to turn your attention back to November 23rd of 2012. Do you remember that particular day?
Yes, I do.
And was that what's commonly referred to as Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, were you working that day at the Gate gas station at the intersection of Southside and Bay Meadows Road?
Yes, I was.
Could you tell the jury what shift you were working that day?
Second shift, which is 2 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Now, when you were working on that day, were you working by yourself or were there other employees working with you?
There were 2 other employees, our assistant manager, Lillian Christensen, and Darian Yates.
Now, Ms. Grimes, can you explain to the jury a little bit what the store looks like when you first walk in?
Yes. When you first walk in, you are immediately faced with register number 2. Around the corner to your right is register 1 that curves, and to the left of register 2 is register 3.
Now, are you assigned to a particular cash register each time you're working at the store?
Yes, ma'am.
And on that particular day, what cash register were you assigned to?
Cash register 3.
And who was working on cash register 2 that day?
Our assistant manager, Lillian Christensen,
Okay, and then how about register 1?
which Darian Yates.
Now, can you also explain to the jury, I know you said the cash registers are in sort of a line that curves. Are they connected by a countertop?
Yes.
Now, from behind cash register 3, where you were working, can you see out into the parking lot?
Yes, I can.
And I'm showing you what should be up on your monitor, States Exhibit 6. And is this a photograph then of the front of the Gate gas station?
Yes.
And then looking at States Exhibit 6, can you circle for the jury where the front door is, or put an X on it, actually. Now, can you now circle for the jury the windows that from where you were behind register 3 that you could see out of? Now, as you were working your shifts that night, did anything out of the ordinary happen?
Yes, when the shooting occurred.
You heard gunshots?
Yes, ma'am.
Where were you when you first heard those gunshots?
I was behind my register ringing up a customer.
Can you describe the customer that you were helping right then when you heard those gunshots?
Yes, she was older, in her 40s, on the tall side, brown hair to her shoulders, dressed nice.
Okay. And what was she buying? Gunshots.
I looked out into the parking lot, and that's when I saw the gun, and it fired again, and I dropped down, and then I stood back up.
Now, Ms. Grimes, I'm showing you State's Exhibit 10 on the screen, and can you circle again? This should be just a better view of the windows that you could see out of.
Yes, ma'am.
And now I know you just mentioned you saw the gun. Could you explain for the jury what you actually saw when you looked out that window?
Yes, I saw two hands around a silver gun rested on the windowsill.
And did you see what, was that a windowsill of a vehicle?
Yes.
Okay, and did you see what type of vehicle or color vehicle that was?
Yes, it was like a black or dark colored four-door.
Can you put an X on the parking spot where you saw that vehicle? Now, Ms. Grimes, from where you were, which direction was that gun pointed?
It was pointing north, which is that way.
Okay. And when you looked up and looked out that window, could you see anything right next to that black vehicle?
No, I saw two empty parking spots.
Okay. Now, can you describe the person who's holding that gun?
No, I could just tell you that the person's hands were white.
And
That
you
is all.
stated- Okay, I'm sorry. And you stated that both of his hands were around the gun?
Yes.
How did you know that what he was holding was a firearm?
I saw him shoot. After the first three shots, I looked out and then I saw the next ones, and that's when I dropped down.
And did you actually see muzzle flashes, coming out of the gun?
Yes.
From where you were standing, could you tell whether or not the door of that vehicle was open?
Yes, it wasn't open.
Okay. Could you tell whether or not the window was down?
Yes, the window was down and his hands were rested on the windowsill.
Now, how many other gunshots did you hear that night?
It was about 8 or 9.
And that was in total?
Yes.
Okay. When you heard all of those gunshots, where was the customer that you had been helping?
She was in front of my counter, and we heard the first 3, and we looked out, and I remember seeing the next one, and I went down, and when I came back up, she was already at the door, I believe, of the store.
Okay, and when you say you went down, did you drop below the cash register counter?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when the woman walked out towards the door, did she take her merchandise with her?
No, she didn't.
Did she leave it on the counter?
Yes, ma'am.
And then what about her change?
And she also left that.
Now, when you said you watched this woman walk to the front door, did she immediately walk out the front door?
No, she paused at the door and said, "Michael, what's going on?" and then left.
Okay. When she walked outside the door, could you tell where she went?
Yes, I watched her get in the passenger side of the vehicle that was right in front of me.
And what did the vehicle do once she got into the passenger side?
They just pulled out and drove away.
Did you see which direction the car took off in?
Yes, the same direction as they were shooting.
Okay. Now, did you ever see that car or that woman again that night?
No, ma'am.
And after you saw the dark-colored vehicle drive off, what did you do?
We stayed inside the store, and the assistant manager called the police.
Now, prior to the gunshots you heard, did you ever hear any sort of arguing going on outside in that parking lot?
No, ma'am.
And prior to the gunshots you heard, did you ever hear any sort of loud music
No, ma'am.
outside from the parking lot? Ms. Grimes, do you know whether or not this particular gas station has surveillance?
It does inside the store.
Is there any exterior surveillance?
There is one camera in the back of
Okay.
the store, yes, but
Nothing showing the gas pumps or this front parking lot?
no, ma'am.
And Ms. Grimes, does the interior video surveillance footage actually have audio?
Yes,
And to the best of your knowledge, does this surveillance camera have just one video footage, or is there multiple camera angles?
yes, there's multiple camera angles pointed at the cash registers.
And Ms. Grimes, have you had a chance to review what's been marked into evidence as State's Exhibit 168, the video surveillance from that night?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, at this time, I would ask to publish State's Exhibit 168.
Yes, ma'am.
And prior to actually playing it, if you could, Ms. Grimes, and looking at the screen in front of you once this is down, can you circle for, can you circle for the jury where the front doors are?
Okay.
Okay, and is that you on the screen behind the register?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that then cash register 3?
Yes.
And then is cash register 2 to your left? Or
Yes.
excuse me, cash register 1?
2 and 1 is where he is standing.
And that's all one countertop that runs together.
Yes, ma'am.
Permission to play the video, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, while this is still up in front of you, Mrs. Grimes, can you, I know they're not in the photograph, but can you kind of show the direction in which the windows are that you had covered before?
The ones I looked out of are directly in front of me.
Now, after this happened, did you then speak with your assistant manager, Mrs. Christensen?
Yes, ma'am.
And can you actually, in this screenshot that's still up on the screen, can you actually see her feet? Can you circle first? And did you tell Mrs. Christensen what you saw happen? After this happened, did the police arrive officially on scene that night at the Gate gas station?
Yes, they did.
And prior to the police arriving on scene, did you ever go outside?
No, I didn't.
Once the police arrived on scene, did you remain inside until you were allowed to leave eventually that night?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, once the police arrived, did they also bring in other witnesses who had been outside and secured them inside?
Yes, they brought the pumps.
And were you all instructed not to talk to each other about what had just happened and what you all had seen or heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I noticed as well, Ms. Grimes, in watching that surveillance footage, that a little receipt pops up in the right-handed corner. And I know it's not on the screenshot, but do you remember what I'm talking about, or do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, could you explain to the jury what that receipt was that popped up in the corner?
That was her bag of chips and bottle of wine that she purchased.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
And for the record, Ms. Grimes, I'm showing you what's previously been admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit 169. Do you recognize State's 169?
Yes, I printed it for the police officer.
And what is State's Exhibit 160? Videos, surveillance shot?
Yes, it does.
Permission to publish, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
Have a moment, Your Honor.
Sure. And ladies and gentlemen, you'll be allowed to take that back into the jury room with you to look at it a little more carefully when you're deliberating.
Your Honor, I have no further questions at this time.
Mr. Carlisle.
How are you, Ms. Grimes?
I'm
Can
fine.
you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Back in the date of this incident, you've been working at the Gate gas station for approximately 2 months, is that correct?
Yes.
And your primary responsibilities back then were the same as now, as helping customers?
Yes, sir.
And that includes working behind the register?
Yes.
And that particular night, you were working behind register number 3, correct?
Yes, I was.
And if you were entering the front door, register 3 would be to your left,
Yes.
okay? And register 3 would be almost directly in front of the first parking space on the left side of the store if you're facing the store from the outside.
Yes, I would.
And that buying wine and chips, which testified to.
Yes.
And while ringing her up, that's when you heard the gunshots?
Yes, it was.
And you looked outside towards where the gunshots were coming from.
Yes, I did.
And you saw the gunshots were coming from a black car?
Yes.
And that black car was parked in the first parking spot on the left side of the store if you're looking at the store from the outside.
Yes, it was.
But it would actually be the first parking spot on your right-hand side, since you're facing the opposite direction.
Yes.
Okay. You could see the shots being fired from the car because you actually saw the silver handgun pointing out the window.
Yes, I
correct?
did.
And you saw the hands were of a Caucasian person?
Yes.
And there was 2 hands holding the gun, correct?
Yes.
And the person firing the gun had their hands resting on the windowsill?
Yes.
And you couldn't tell if this was a male or female?
No, I couldn't.
And that's because you were focused on the gun, right?
Yes, sir.
And you can see that the person firing was not leaning out the window.
Not that I saw, no.
They were firing from the same position?
Yes.
While you were watching the person holding the gun, they didn't get out of the car, correct?
I did not see the person get out of the car, no.
I believe your testimony on direct was that the door did not open while you were watching.
No.
It did not open?
No.
Okay. Now, the firing that you saw was directed out of the driver's window. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And so this would be to your right-hand side, which would be north.
That's correct.
And there are several parking spaces on that side of the store, correct?
Yes.
And you could see the parking space directly adjacent to where the black car was parked.
Yes, I could see where the car was parked and then 2 spaces, and they were both empty when I looked out.
So when you saw the person firing the gun out the window, there was no red Dodge Durango in either the spot next to the black car or the spot next to that?
Correct, I did not see that.
Okay. I have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Ms. Wilson?
Just briefly.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Grimes, were you looking out that window prior to hearing any gunshots?
No, I was ringing up my customer.
Okay, no further questions, Your Honor.
May she be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Carlisle?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. You're excused.
Thank you.
State's next witness.